is that, and the second item is approve the minutes. So let's take a minute to look at the minutes and approve or not those minutes. They're fairly short, straightforward.
I see. Yeah,
What?
okay, yeah, that's misspelled.
Talking to Cam.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
All those in favor, say aye.
I have a correction, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's in, under Food Summit, and the name Leslie Hasfeld, it should be Hasfeld, F-E-L-D.
Hosfeld, okay.
Yeah.
And I read her biography. She's quite interesting. She has a lot of experience in this area. She's a really good speaker. All right. I guess we need a motion to amend that. You got it? All right. All those who approve minutes as amended, say aye, please. Aye. Okay, any opposition? All right, we'll move on to number 3, Upstate Forever.
They don't hear him assume that she probably got caught in the rain or some kind of traffic, so if she comes in before we finish, it'll be okay with y'all if we can just skip until then?
Sure.
Okay.
Anytime, we'll be glad to hear. So we'll table that or whatever and come back to it if she shows up and look at the comprehensive plan for 2020.
Okay, so the comprehensive plan, including the agricultural element, has gone through 2 of its 3 readings. The next and final reading will be on March 3rd, it's Tuesday night. So far, it's passed the first 2 readings. However, if you all would like to show support or make comment on it at the next meeting, individually or as a group, you're certainly welcome to. I believe certain members of the planning commission are gonna go to the next meeting, just in case they need more information or just as a word of support, since everyone worked pretty hard on the plan. So if anyone's available to go and can speak on behalf of the board, we would need a motion and vote for that, if somebody'd like to volunteer. If not, people can just show up and show support as ag board members, just not on behalf of the ag board.
Would one be more powerful than the other, or?
Well, speaking on behalf of the board, is what I like personally, but you can certainly go individually. But if you're available or someone is available and they'd like to volunteer, that'd be great.
Do we hear any volunteers to speak on behalf of the board at the next, or the March 3rd council meeting?
Or is it, oh, yeah, I was gonna say, which date? This
Tuesday, March, the first meeting in March.
March? I can do that if nobody else wants to.
Can others speak as well, or just one person?
No, of course, the more the merrier, of course. So if there's multiple people to come speak, we can do that. But if they're gonna speak on behalf of the board, a motion and a vote to authorize those people to speak on behalf of the board would be the most above board way to go about it.
Do we have a motion to ask one person to represent the board at the March 3rd council meeting? Ms. Sewell, specific.
Make a motion that Ms. Sewell represent the board at the meeting.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And like Mr. Adams said, we can certainly go, and and support Debbie and our 2020 cause. And so Debbie will represent, and I encourage others to go, even if you don't speak, just show up, show some support.
So, we have a little discussion about this. Or do you want us to the idea is just to kind of summarize maybe our element and what we're,
If you wanted to speak just in support of the comprehensive plan as a whole, you certainly could, or specifically the agricultural element, just as a show of support.
okay.
That would be the idea behind it. And if you have any personal feelings, opinions, of course you can bring those up as well. But speak out, since the board as a whole unanimously recommended the plan, at least the agricultural element, you all could speak, you could definitely speak to that, the agricultural element.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So we encourage everyone to come that night and speak or listen or just show up. Do we want to move on to the summit update or come back? Are we ready for upstate forever or? Next is the food summit update. Who would like to update us on that?
I am going to tonight.
Wonderful.
For those that don't know me, again, my name is Amanda Callahan. I am also a local farmer, Callowwood Farms. We raise pigs and chickens. And I've been serving on the planning committee. The one big update that I want to share with you that I think all of you will be pretty excited about, which we were really excited about, is that Dr. David, and you're going to have to help me with his pronunciation of his last name, but Dr. David Lamey, Lamey, thank you, has joined us. He's come on board as the really the facilitator of the whole day. He's going to help us really put together the puzzle pieces for the end, which we're so excited about. This food summit is not intended to just be come and educate yourself on a 1-hour session. It's really come and educate yourself on what the current food system is, and then dive deep into a specific issue you're super passionate about. And so Dr. David Lamey, did I get it right that time? Okay, Lamey, he is gonna come help at the end of the day, after the breakout sessions happen and you kind of dive deep on the issues. Every breakout session is going to come and kind of present what their solutions are and what they can do to move their specific session forward. Like, what are the solutions, or what are the low-hanging fruits? What's the big picture? And he's going to help us at the end of the day kind of put that all together in a roadmap to move forward, and really super action-oriented targets. And so we're really excited about that. I'm sure many of you know him. What you got, Bubba?
Do you have a topic for the breakout sessions?
We have 10 breakout sessions.
And are those posted yet?
Are they posted externally? Yes, they are. They just were published in the Clemson Area Food Exchange. Just did a great article on the entire event.
Okay.
There are 10 breakout sessions, and the idea is that you actually only attend one of them. I know that's kind of a bummer because you're like, I want to go to all of them, but you only go to one of them. They're 90 minutes long, and the intention again is so that you can dive deep with an expert-led person, and then really do brainstorming and action planning on them. So they have a variety of issues, starting from some of the things that we want possibly to happen afterwards, which is establishing a food policy council, what a community foods need assessment might look like. There'll also be very specific stuff. Food waste. What are we going to do with it as a county? Food packaging. How are we going to address it? There'll be as one of them as a animal farmer, I'm really excited about. We're bringing in some really big people from North Carolina and Kentucky to talk to us about animal processing issues for small rural communities. Really stoked about that one. We're going to have somebody, many of you guys know Shay Airy. He's going to come and talk about some land conservation and how we can address those things in small communities, the development piece of it. We're going to do, so lots of different topics. We're covering the whole gamut. from food production to waste to some of the bigger theoretical pieces.
Okay.
What'd I miss, Sandra?
You did a great job.
No, I'm talking about the breakout section. Which one did I miss?
Oh, okay, yeah. I have them right here, and I'll just read
Yeah,
them.
Sandra's got them.
Sourcing local products for food.
Oh, yes.
businesses.
Yep, so Leslie from 313 Cafe is gonna come and talk. We've got some great restaurants already lined up to be there, so that they're gonna be in that breakout session, figuring out how can we better source from local farmers and get food into our restaurants from the local farms.
And you talked about the waste. Food as medicine in combating health conditions with nutrition.
Yes, Beth Kunkel. We're so excited about her. Unfortunately, her business partner, Dr. Glenn Quattlebaum, can't be with us that day, but they're going to be showcasing their pilot program, which is the Produce Prescription Program, reducing diabetes, and what they've done at the Clemson Student Organic Farm around giving specifically produce access to those that have critical health conditions. It's gonna be awesome.
And supporting new farmers.
Yep.
And
Oh yeah, Jason is gonna come in and do USDA grants for supporting new farmers.
building grassroots support for farmers markets.
Yes.
Got that.
That's the only one that we haven't confirmed that's out there, but we're talking to a couple people, one over in Horry County, one up in the Catawba region, to come in and talk about like how do we really do grassroots building around farmers markets and really make, to talk about marketing, coordination of farmers markets, and really make something happen here in Coney County that supports farmers and consumers.
I think you covered everything.
That sounds wonderful. How much response have you had from attendees?
We're rolling. We are. We keep getting several tickets a day purchased, and we still got plenty of room. But we're not too worried about it here in the last couple of weeks. We've got some really great press coming up. There was a great newsletter article just posted. I think that there was a segment featured with the mayor Saturday morning. Talk radio. What else? There's a lot of other stuff. There's going to be a big piece in the Journal coming up. So we're excited about who else is going to join us.
How are we doing on sponsors?
We could always use sponsors.
Okay, who's the point person for contacting potential sponsors?
I can be that person. I know you guys know Mandolin. She can be that person. Ashley can be that person. Ashley's here with me. And we've got our big presenting sponsors are the Healthy Oconee Coalition as well as the Farm Center. And we've got a couple of additional sponsors lined up doing some other stuff. So Seneca Treehouse has come on. They're going to house several of our speakers coming in from afar. And we've got a couple farms sponsoring. So we've got some. We could always use more though.
We would be willing to help you contact some people if we knew who to or who not to contact.
Okay.
Who's already been contacted.
Excellent. Okay, I can definitely get a list would I get that to Adam? Hey Adam, you want me to get you a list?
Right down.
Okay, I'll get you a list.
Very good. Looking forward to it. It sounds very exciting.
Thank you so much for purchasing your ticket. I got your name down, so I know you'll be there.
I'm sure everyone's purchased their ticket.
Well, we haven't, but we can.
We will purchase some more
Thank you.
and possibly some sponsorships.
Yeah. Are there any other questions y'all have for me tonight? Awesome.
Very good. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Agricultural communications.
Hold on just
Oh,
a second.
sorry.
We briefly spoke on this last week. I think that I would like to make a motion that we call a meeting for that day, since we already have like 4 people signed up. I think it might be
You
prudent.
do that, if you think you'll have quorum there, I can certainly advertise.
We already have
We already
like
do.
4 people we know is gonna be there, so
I'll be there, I'll just be later, a little bit late,
I think we ought to do
there
it.
as soon as I can. Was it start at 9? Is this correct?
Yes. So I'd like to make a motion that we call a meeting for February 28th for the Oconee Food Summit.
And a second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Any opposed? Good call, Debbie. Anything else?
I think that's it, unless anybody has any other questions.
Appreciate the update. That was very good. Agricultural communications, next item.
I sure, since you have to have Caitlin from Upstate Forever showed up, if you'd like to switch back to that, we can certainly.
All right, we'll postpone number 6 and jump back to 3. Ms. Caitlin, come forward and speak. I hope you didn't have weather trouble or directional
It
trouble.
was really coming down.
And getting foggy. Yeah,
Expected to get worse this week, but
we're glad to have you.
Oh, well, you couldn't see the hand up for
okay, cool, thank you.
Technology always is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Caitlin. I think I've met a couple of you before, so it's great to see new faces. I'm also really excited about the Food Summit. 100% getting my ticket. So I wanted to talk briefly about how conservation easements can help farmers continue to keep their land in farming, and how we can start to ensure that we continue to have farmland in Oconee County. So this is really based on programs and services that are offered specifically to farmers. And this is just a slide to give a little background about myself. I grew up in Georgia, spent about, I guess, 15 years of my adolescence on my parents' farm in Southwest Virginia. So I spent a lot of time with cows and gardening, and have an agriculture background. And so currently I work for Upstate Forever. I've been working there for a little over a year. I work in Oconee, Pickens, Anderson, and Lawrence agricultural communities. And so what Upstate Forever does is protect our critical lands, water, and unique character of the upstate, which is, of course, very much tied to farmland. So that's really my focus, and what I really like to see is how do I make sure that a farmer is able to keep their property in farming, potentially see that onto the next generation, or even if they sell it, let's make sure that it's still kept as farmland. So we currently have 125 easements. I think it's actually 23,000 acres now. And these really range from farmland, parks, forestry land, and everything in between. And there's definitely a few conservation easements in Oconee County. And to give a brief overview of a conservation easement, it's really a way for a landowner to legally restrict certain uses on their property. And that's usually extensive commercial development and extensive subdivision. You're still able to do commercial agriculture practices on your property. We don't get into management practices. It's really just you're continuing to farm your land. You just can't sell it off and turn it into a mall, which you probably wouldn't want to do anyway. You can still sell the property, you can still transfer it, and we don't grant public access on your property. We don't come unannounced. Okay, cool. And I know from talking with past groups, there seems to be a lot of people that have maybe heard of conservation easements, maybe a little misconceptions, some people equating it to zoning or thinking that this is a way for an organization to take away your rights as a farmer. And, you know I said you're legally restricting certain uses on your property, but we do not interfere with your practice on the land. Really the only way that we interfere is what are your future uses for the property and documenting that so we can ensure that that's being followed. So yeah, I said no commercial development. We really strive to protect stream and wetland buffers. So usually there's just no building within 100 feet. You're still able to independently own the land. You can harvest timber. You can still sell the land, and it's not the same as zoning. We're a nonprofit organization. We're not abiding by governmental regulations, I guess you could say. And so there's various benefits given to the farmer. I know a lot of times farmers don't have a big tax liability, but if there ever is a tax liability, farmers can deduct 100% of their income. And then there's a state tax credit, which is 25% of their federal deduction. And how that works is a property would be appraised, and the appraiser would figure out the highest and best use, and then they would look at the value of the property after the easement, and that difference in value is called the conservation easement value. And so that amount, if it was $1 million property, the easement would reduce it to $500,000. you would receive the tax deduction based on that amount. And then for funding options, these funding options usually bring in about 75% of that conservation easement value, and that's a payment to the farmer that they receive at closing. So it's really a way for you to hold on to your property but still receive a financial benefit, right off the bat, and you're still able to keep your property. You can still see it appreciate in value over time. And Oconee is pretty unique where they have their own county conservation bank, so that's an additional funding source that you can go to. And especially land in this county, since you're right by the escarpment of the Blue Ridge Mountains, land values are, pretty good here. So that would definitely, look a lot higher when you're dealing with appraised values and conservation gains in that regard. And this is just a kind of bleak picture, not to scare you, or maybe it is to scare you. But I just think conservation easements are a great way to kind of have more of a say in how we see development. Oftentimes, before you blink, your next door neighbor's property is turned into, a massive subdivision, and it's really out of your control. And so easements are just a really great tool to make sure that we continue to see farmland. And so I've been really trying to push this message to, anyone and everyone I can, especially in Oconee County. And so I'm really trying to reach farmers and other landowners in the area that would maybe be interested in this. I think it has a lot of benefit. And it's definitely a customized process. It's not at all a document that I give a landowner and say, hey, this is the agreement, take it or leave it. It's completely dependent on what are their needs, what do they want for their property, that kind of thing. So did anyone have any questions or?
Is there a minimum acreage?
Usually it's 100 acres, but I know if depending on the conservation values, it could be anywhere from like 50 acres. At the end of the day, if someone wants to protect their property, we'll, try to make that happen. And we definitely have easements that are, under 50 acres, for example. So, yes.
How many easements last year in Oconee County that you're aware of?
I know I sent the number for Oconee County a while ago. And I know, have you met Chris Starker?
I think he's spoken to us.
Yeah, so I'm kind of more ag in Oconee County, and that's kind of been a transitional role. So I could get the numbers from Chris and let you know that. But, yeah. Cool.
Could family members, if one family member had 50 acres and one had 50 or 75, could they go together and make the amount needed?
So I'm working on a project with a property in Anderson County where it's 3 different family members that collectively own like 500 acres. And in that sense, I think I found thus far it's easier to just do a separate easement. It just seems to work out a little easier to do that. But I know you definitely could if that was something that they wanted to do.
Just wondering if it didn't meet the 100-acre minimum.
Yeah, and especially if it's farmland, that's something where we just go to our committee and say, hey, this is a project we really like, could we get approval? It's easy to work around, I guess.
Is the South Carolina Land our conservation bank? Are they funding again in reasonable amounts of money? Because I knew they were stopped for a while.
Yeah, I know they stopped for a while, and I know now they have funding cycles June and January, and to my knowledge, it's still, they bring in around 25 to 30% of the conservation easement value. I know now they're starting to be a little, harsher, you could say, of what they do accept, but I don't think we've had a problem with that. We're also shooting to raise more Upstate Forever funds to help offset some of the costs, because I think that is something where if you're a farmer, maybe you don't have the money to pay for an appraisal. I think that's something where now Upstate Forever is wanting to help pay for those costs, so that's not a barrier to prevent someone from moving forward. And especially in Oconee County, we also have specific funds. It's a grant specifically for for Oconee County. So there's other resources, because I definitely don't want the funding to be a barrier, and we try to work around that.
So if an individual or a family farm want to put it in a conservation easement, there is cost to them.
Yeah, so that's another thing I could expound upon. The cost associated with the easement, it's $1,000 to Upstate Forever. That's usually $250 up front. That helps us draft the easement. And then it's $750 at closing. That covers our time spent doing a baseline report, which is a very dense overlook at the entire property to make sure we document it from the time that the agreement's been signed. An appraisal is another cost. A lot of times there's closing costs in general. If you need a survey, maybe that needs to be updated, but usually landowners have a fine survey if it's, decent. And then the other cost is the stewardship endowment request, which are funds that go to the stewardship side. So each year, the property is stewarded once a year in perpetuity to make sure the agreement's being followed. And those funds also help us if we ever need to defend any properties in court. So, and usually this is if a landowner drastically goes against the easement and maybe like they clear cut a massive area of their property that, wasn't in their forest management plan. And usually the last resort would be to go to court. Usually we're just saying, hey, can you try to plant more trees? Let's work this out. So yeah, those are costs that are to be expected, and it's also if there's some costs that's a barrier to you proceeding, then that's definitely something we've been able to help in the past.
Have you ever seen one reversed or tried to see somebody get out of one for any reason?
No, I know it's been difficult since Upstate Forever started in 1998, and so we've seen a lot of easements that have been sold and the new owner comes in, and since they're not the ones that initially put forth the easement, it's kind of been a little difficult sometimes for them to know, like, hey, you've got to follow this or ask permission in some regards, but never one where someone's tried to end the agreement. So,
It's
yeah.
attached to the deed or whatever. They'll know about it when they buy the property.
Yeah, they know about it when they buy the property, and Upstate Forever is also supposed to be notified if a property gets sold. So, yeah. And we always try to, meet the new landowner and, get them up to speed on it. So, cool. Well, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All righty. Ready for communications?
Certainly. So I handed you all this spreadsheet. Miss Carrie helped me fill it out. We've talked a lot about communication seems to be a key, and it seems to be a key that we're missing. So what could happen is if you also choose, is there's about 60 odd groups on here. That's about 10 a person. I know there's groups missing there. This is as comprehensive as I got at the moment. What the journal puts out a what's going on kind of list, happenings this week kind of thing. And if we can convince a handful of these groups to do it once a month, say, all right, Adam, we got this, that, and the other thing, roadside stands, farmers markets, just events, ag happenings in the county. I can format it all, give it to the journal runs it, and that's a start. That's free advertising. And maybe we can grow that into something if we can do it on a regular basis. I don't know these people. You do. You interact with at least, I guarantee you, not every name on this is unfamiliar to you. So if you're willing to, everyone pick 10 groups on this. And yes, you can pick yourself, Mr. Hoffman. And reach out to them and say, hey, and I'll send you all the scripts, some talking points tonight or tomorrow morning. But if you all be willing to do that, and Karen, I'm not putting you on the spot for that since you got your own thing going on, so you can reach out to people if you want to, but I wouldn't. That's why I have to set the 6 y'all. And that'd be really helpful. So if y'all are willing to do that, if everyone could pick 10 of these people to call, that'd be super helpful. Or groups.
How can we avoid duplication?
If you all let me know over the next day who you're gonna pick, and I can just send that out. So if everyone by Friday will tell me who they're gonna call, you can call me or email me or text me, or just stop in the office, tell me who you're gonna call, or just stop in and see, or what have you. I will send out a list on Friday or Monday. Are we closed Friday?
No.
Oh, the schools are closed Friday for some reason.
Friday and Monday. It's your work day.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
Just,
hardly.
just to make parents crazy.
Yeah.
It just happened to fall on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I know, it's the first Friday of the Lunar New Year, something like that, take it off.
I don't question
Um,
it. I just roll with it.
exactly, right, okay, this works in your schedule.
Can I have one of those sheets when you get through there?
Here, I've got one.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. So, if you all could work on giving me that information by Friday, I'll send out a master list on Monday, and we'll get rolling with this. That sound good to everyone? Awesome.
If we want to add some to the list, can we,
Please
is
do.
that difficult?
Easy enough, just an Excel sheet.
Little Cane Creek Farms and Pat Williams is the same thing. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Good call, Doug. Any other comments on that? Let's try to add to the list. This doesn't have to be the last and final copy. I've got several here I've discovered and added. And
This was
so
as much as Carrie could pull out of her brain.
Carrie did good.
I was trying.
Carrie did great, and,
Words left me hanging.
we also had a prior template that we were using, before that, so you contributed greatly. Thank you. And I believe you offered to, well, I'll bring that up later. Well, that's communications. You said you have a Clemson site. There's this extension statewide site, and I discovered the food safety site today. Food Systems and Safety. Oh, man, that's a good site. It talks about a lot of good upcoming events. We ought to note that one. Any other ideas, comments? Let's try to add to the list. There's got to be some more out there. Okay, any other on that? Number 7 addresses an ag position.
Yes, sir. So in our comprehensive plan, and you all have mentioned a couple times as far as it being a priority for y'all, in order to do that, we would have to come up with a,
Job
I can't just, yeah, I actually can't just go to the administration and be like, hey, I need an extra 60 grand. I need, with benefits, that's inclusive of benefits, that comes to like 38 or 35, something like that. I would need some sort of a statement of need. I would need a job description. I would need some other kinds of input, and I can't do that myself. So just in and of my own volition, I don't wanna, I need a little more group input. So if there's someone or someone's available to work on that with me, or collect some data and hand me what I need, but really examples of some of the things elsewhere and kind of a statement of need would be helpful. Ms. Sullivan?
Mr.
Glad to-
Chairman, can I say something?
Oh, yeah.
I have been doing some research on that, and I have some data already.
Oh, awesome.
I've got a couple of job, descriptions. I don't know about statement of need, but I can probably come up with that easy. But I do have a few examples, and then I kind of came up with what I thought that the position would be like for the county, our county.
That's great.
And so I can definitely be, a part of that if you would like.
I need some, yeah, I just, whoever's willing to put in a little extra homework and if they got any time when the weather's, we'll pick a day, what the weather's like, so, that'd be super helpful.
There is, Henderson County, North Carolina hired an agribusiness person. This was probably, I've been here 4 years, so this was probably like 8 years ago, maybe. Mark Williams. Right on the threshold of all like the brewery, winery, that kind of stuff. And so they would have a position description and that kind of stuff too. I don't know if that's where you
That's in
got.
my research.
Oh, there you go.
He's
Sorry.
that's the position, I don't know him. but-
Yeah, I worked with him some when I was in Henderson County Extension.
Very good.
So
All right.
Ms. Sewell will give a hand. If anybody else has any thoughts, ideas, input, please let me know so I can kind of get it out there.
All right. Very good. Increase the number of new farmers.
Certainly, so if I may. I believe Ms. Sewell brought up Aglanta. It's when we're talking about our vacant lands and things of that nature. And so Vivian set up a meeting with Aglanta and ourselves, a phone meeting for
The 19th.
the 19th. So we're gonna reach out to them and kind of see what they did, and that could tie into any number of new things. Someone said very kind of off the cuff to me, I was talking about, I wanna put a little container garden outside my office window here, cause they get full sun. And someone had seen one of our litter control crews out doing that, and like, oh, you should get some of these litter control crews to come, give you a hand, shoveling dirt and whatnot. And I was like, we have a lot of people in jail, and and our sheriff is very into, stopping recidivism, people going back to jail. Sheriff French was very proactive with that. And I said it's kind of funny, but it's been sticking on my board, but felons to farmers. I mean, it's not the catchiest title, but I mean, y'all know what I'm talking about. We have a lot of, inmates who are looking to kind of turn the other cheek, so to speak. But we need to come up with a way to increase the number of new farmers somehow. And an ag business person showing the value of ag, not just focusing on the communal side, social side of it, but the monetary side of it. But how do we increase the number of new farmers? That's an international problem. Maybe we can work on solving it. Anyone have any other ideas? I'll get to jail. What's next?
You need a spot.
The State Beekeepers Association have worked with, in other counties, worked with different, jails or whatever, and to train people to keep bees, and that has been a really successful project. There's a guy that's within the beekeepers, state beekeepers program that does that. He's done, they've had a lot of success with that, which is along the same lines of what you're talking about. But also, I think, these revitalizations of the downtown areas is one thing. We should work with that. Even like the Utica project, they need a community garden there.
For sure.
And also Blue Ridge, the old Blue Ridge School, they have a great place for a garden there, and they'd love to have a community garden there. I talked to somebody last year about that. There's several avenues for a lot of different groups of people that I think would be, could be on the forefront with that, similar to what they've done in Ag Atlanta. So there's a lot of, maybe not traditional farmers, like you said, but communities is the place to start, I think, on the grassroots thing.
Yeah, it'll have to evolve.
They do have, Clemson Extension has a statewide school garden coordinator, Amy Dabbs. And so she works the whole state, but through 4-H agents and different extension, and works with different schools if they want to put in a school garden. They provide all the plant material, everything that they need. I know the one problem that they run up against is that the changeover in teachers. You get a teacher that's really passionate about it and has a really successful garden for 3 or 4 years, and then they change grade levels or change schools, and they don't have somebody else to come in. So that's always a struggle point. But she works with a lot of different community partners throughout the state to help. So if you know somebody that's interested in a school garden, specifically that one, they have tons of great resources to connect them to.
That kind of happened at Westminster. The principal, man, she was gung-ho. Grants, 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 grants. Everything came into that school because she wanted those gardens to succeed. And then when she left, I think it just fell by the wayside more. But Stanley and I were talking also about this coming fair, about everybody thinks they got to have acres and acres, you know, to have a garden and to have sustainability for their food, good fresh food. And we wanted, and I wanted the help and a little sponsorship too, of the ways and different ways that things can be planted. You know, you don't have to put things down in the soil. I mean, there's so many different ways. And I think if we went through the school system and the FFA members to get these things done and make a lot of big advertisements so people will come to look at this stuff that we're, you know, trying to show that you do not have to have 10 or 15 acres to make a difference on your table. And Stanley said this year that we were going to try to do a lot more of that kind of thing, to teach, you know. But now, like I said, the place in Pickens down here, and right in front of the museum, they have these classes for adults, and we in Oconee County, just like our farm center, we need something like that because they are running over. Those classes are running over with people signing up for these to want to learn how to can, how to process things, how to raise animals. I mean, it's out there. They're hungry for it. We just in Oconee County need a place to do it.
Square foot gardens are one of the best I've ever done.
Exactly, and that's where you can start off small like that. But every time I would go do a presentation on planting or anything at the elementary schools, they would just want to take every one of my seeds home. They wouldn't let me have a seed. They wanted it, you know. They wanted to do it. They wanted to learn it. And the beekeeping too, the presentations I always did, they just eat it up. They love it.
So really, I mean, although I was hoping we'd solve the new farmer problem tonight, it's okay that we didn't. What are some I guess we need to start having this kind of academic conversation and then try to tailor it down and drive it into some actionable things that we can do. If we can inspire one person or get one person to say, you know what, let me just try putting in a square foot garden somewhere, or try putting something in. Have you all seen anything that's worked? I'll definitely reach out to the person in Hendersonville, because economics tends to drive everything, is if you make money on it. And so what else? What else can we do? What do you all think would be helpful?
Look at what schools have them and what schools don't have them, and then try to get them injected into the ones that don't. Like Seneca High, I think the special ed class has some in addition to the FFA. Greenhouses. And likewise, some have bees, right, Debbie?
All
all
the schools.
All do?
All have bees.
Okay.
But the problem with that is the same thing is like what we're talking about, when the person that was taking care of them, turnover, then we have problems with somebody taking responsibility from them in school. And it was supposed to be that they were supposed to take over, and then the mentors were just, through the bee club, were supposed to just answer questions. But it turns out the mentors do all the work, and we're trying to transition them into keeping up the beehives themselves. We have some schools that do great, though, it's not just, but, those little observation hives have a little bit of a struggle, but.
How's I haven't reached out to her, it's my fault, but how's the Oconee Cultivation Project coming?
Of what?
Yeah.
Is it still going on?
Yeah, things are still great. I'm the chair of the board of the Oconee Cultivation Project, and we're still doing really great. We're kind of regrouping this year. I don't think that there's going to be a summer teen program this year, which is our flagship program, just because of demands of our small pool of volunteers time. But really looking forward to being the hosting agency of carrying forward some of the plans of the Food Summit.
Awesome.
But our community garden in Westminster is still thriving, and a lot of this is taking place, what you guys are talking about, in various places in the community already. And we're not promoting what's already happening. So
I think that's what the food
Exactly.
summit is gonna
the
do.
food summit is a piece of it, but like the Oconee Cultivation Project already hosts a wealth of these workshops for growing in that community garden. They're hosting cooking classes at Dot's Kitchen. I host a cooking class in Oconee County. This stuff is already happening.
Well, that goes back to communication. See, I had no idea that some of this, that's the communication of getting it out there to let everybody know that stuff like that is going on.
Yeah. And
That we
then-
can volunteer to help you.
That's right, yes, yeah, and, I think a lot of that stuff, it would be posted if we could get it out, in a better way.
Right.
Because, it's not well attended, and we go through all this work to put off these gardening workshops and cooking classes, and then
Right.
we don't do them anymore.
Early on, we identified communication as one of the most difficult problems we face.
Exactly.
We've coined the phrase, the 3 Cs, which is communication, coordination, and cooperation. If some of y'all can help us write, we're not the most prolific writers here, but we do try. But if anyone can write and promote what you're doing and what you know about, that would be great.
This is an awesome
I
website.
have you on my list to communicate with you. You're
You
one of
you already
my,
tagged me?
Yeah, you're
yes,
on,
I've tagged you and
Wait,
your
that's-
your farm and the
That's low hanging
cultivation.
fruit right there.
on the list, yes.
So they're mine, on my list.
So this is their website. I just Googled Oconee Cultivation Project. And the reason why I asked is because I always thought that you all had, the cultivation project had like the drive and the reason behind doing it, down really, really well. So that was just my rationale for asking about that. I really like their idea. But that's, that's one side of it. I guess we gotta look at the things that are stopping people from farming and reasons why they wouldn't farm.
I've got one thing I'd like to add, and there's a program out here, and probably Carrie could relate to this better than I can, but, you've got, the age of farmers is, 64 years old and older, and a lot of them are coming out of farming, gonna retire out of farming or whatever. And, there's a program going on, like for instance, I didn't have anybody to leave my farm to, but I'd really like to see my farm keep going, and I'd like to retire even. There's a program that you could take somebody like that's coming out of, that maybe graduated Clemson, maybe coming out of high school, that's really wanting to get into agriculture, but don't have the opportunity or the money to do that. And that's a program where the farmer could go back and say, listen, I'd like somebody to come in and be interested in growing apples, maybe would want to come in, I want to retire, and probably set up like a lease deal, here it is, you run it, all those details could be worked out, but that would keep farming going. You know what I'm saying? Because I know, I'm gonna tell you this, if I had to start over and to want to become a farmer,
No way.
there's no way. I can't afford it to start with, and I'm not going in debt $500,000 to start with. But, that's a program that, I don't know if he's got one in the state or got one as a federal program like that or whatever, but I did read something about it several years ago, and that's something maybe we ought to put in our communications, that if you to our farmers, if you want to keep your farm going, you want to retire, he comes in and works and you train him, then you just back out and let him run it, and that'll keep farming going, and maybe down the line, pass it down to him, or whatever, whatever the details you want to work out there.
Mr. Cobb did.
That would keep farmers in farming and keep increased farming too.
I love the idea. I've seen it before, and I think that's one more kind of piece of this puzzle. If we get the youth engaged, get non-traditional farmers engaged, we redefine what agriculture means, what farming means. Doesn't necessarily mean a John Deere and 50 acres anymore. And if you can get some of the, like I said, aging out farmers in, I think we're starting to have some sort of weird Venn diagram of how we can make this happen and see where they all meet in the middle. So we need to kind of keep pushing this process, because we're going to have to come up with some ideas here and get some actionable. But I love the idea. I think California and Oregon, I've seen some of those projects. What about you, Karen?
There's some farm planning things that are out there, available. The other one is the South Carolina New and Beginning Farmer Program. That's a big program throughout the whole state. They travel, they do workshops, It's an intensive, like, couple months long. I usually do their soils workshop for them at the soil lab, and I do a training on how to read your soil report, how to, what is that, when you look at it, it looks like in another language, and what does that really mean? But that's a really good resource, something we might be able to promote if people are looking to get into production. There is the South Carolina Grower website that we do with Extension. We post updates every week of what's happening. If you look at this week's update, it's a picture of snow. It talks about a lot of rain, we're flooding. But it talks about around the state who's doing what. And so there's a lot of these programs out there that would be a good service to us as far as to push and to promote. And Extension does those canning and food preservation workshops, but we can only reach as far as our mailing list or our social media sites get us. So if we're able to send them further than that, we do articles every week in the newspaper on Saturday, and we try to like promote our programs shamelessly in there. But having more routes to promote that, because a lot of these things are workshops that we do too. And so there's also an events tab on this page at the top that I actually do. I keep it up. And so if you scroll down there, it'll tell you, I haven't taken January off yet. But like this time of year is all the grower meetings around the state. So it has all the production meetings. There's a strawberry grower meeting coming up. There's the peach meeting that's coming up on the 20th. Spring vegetable production in Pillion. So they're all around the state, and some of them require a little bit more travel than others, but they're great resources. But if anybody has events that are happening that are pertinent to growers in South Carolina, all they have to do is email me, and I will add anything to this. It is not within Clemson's domain, and we purposely did that so that we're not bound by the university to put it on their calendar, and it has to be a Clemson event. So we can put anybody's stuff on here as long as it pertains to growers in South Carolina. So if you have anything, I can add it. And I'm the one that keeps that up. So all you have to do is email me. So you'll see, shameless plug, our Upstate Fruit Grower meeting is on March 5th. Come join us. But like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on, and just being able to promote that and push that to those new growers would be a big help.
Does that get a lot of traffic, that website?
It does. And so Justin Ballou is the agent around Lexington County, and he's the one who manages the main site. He does the updates each week, and so he keeps up with all the hits and that stuff for us. But he was at the Young Farmer and Rancher Conference this past weekend, the South Carolina Young Farmer and Rancher, and that was, he said he had lots of comments about the site, saying they were glad that they were doing it and that kind of stuff, which is another place. We, from my understanding, do not have a Young Farmer and Rancher in this county. Is that correct? I've aged out, but we've talked about,
Because they got some.
is there a current chapter?
I believe so, I'm not a part of it, but.
I've heard that it's not very active, or it's not,
That may be true, but there's a chapter.
They won some awards in
Yeah, they did, yeah.
this week,
Young
this
Farmer?
year.
our
Yeah,
Young
Young Farmer
Farmer
and
for this
Rancher.
county?
Yes.
Had
Okay.
several win awards.
Yeah, they
At the Farm Bureau.
Yeah, so that would be another big avenue to be able to push, because that's your age range, 18 to 35.
Well, that's where you'd market that program of.
Yeah.
I've
Mindy
got
Watt is
land, I'm
president.
looking to,
Yeah.
I'm looking to.
I mean, that's a huge connection, because those are people that are active in the community, and really pushing it.
Yeah, there's a bunch went to that meeting in Charleston this past weekend on Facebook.
Yeah.
So kind of circling the wagons here. So
Abels has went.
looking at an ag position, someone in an ag position could certainly help in, if you all wanna do a staff position, in doing these things, cause you all have great ideas there, and I could probably do one of them occasionally, but, you know, there are, I just, unfortunately, and it's something I really do enjoy doing, but having someone to do this as could definitely impact, especially if we kind of come up with a plan. So having this conversation is important to writing a sort of job description or a reason meeting.
This is the kind of discussion that we want to have at the summit as well, so we hope everybody's there. That's what kind of input we need.
All right.
Not changing the subject, let me throw this in here, since we're going to increasing farmers and whatever, and then I'll hush up. Right now on the Senate floor, there's two items there on the Senate floor that's going on, and one of them is rollback taxes. I don't know if you're familiar with what rollback taxes are, but that's if you taking farmland and turn it into commercial or whatever, you got, rollback taxes that goes back 5 years that you've got to pay if you're a person that owns the land or you work out a deal with whoever you sell on the land to. So it comes up, and the Farm Bureau is into this a little bit. We're looking at different things on what to look for. We'd like to see it 3-year rollback go to, the 5-year rollback, what it is now, go to 3 years. And that would more or less increase people to keep their farmland. And that's in the Senate right now going through. They've been working on that. And also the H 4209, which is the disaster aid, that we didn't have when the floods came, and we tried to get the money for the farmers that got washed out, and it took a year before they ever got anything. So they're looking at starting in the budget, putting something in there in case of a disaster again. And it looks like if it keeps raining, we may have it. But, that's two things I'd like to bring up, because we're talking about farming and all. It kind of relates to it. But if you get to your senator or your House of Representatives, all the politicians, heck, it don't matter who they are, mention you in favor of this rollback tax thing, because that's to increase agriculture. And if you don't know it, you can just go on and Google rollback taxes in South Carolina, and they explain to you everything you need to know about rollback taxes. But that's something that, that I think we ought to be aware of what's going on in our legislature. I'm done.
Thank you, very good, very good. Old business. Any further on the backpack program?
I don't know why I didn't ask. I met with Steve Hanby. I'll have to ask. I didn't ask where they were being packed at.
Okay. Has there been any change on the barley and hops deal that the brewer house came and talked to us about? He wanted to market his beverages like the wine was being marketed and not have to go through a distributor. Wanted to be treated equally. Is there any update on that? Anybody?
I'm gonna have to defer to Mr. Landon.
Okay, well,
I hadn't heard of anything in the
okay,
pipeline.
well, just curious. Any other old business?
There's,
New business, Mr. Reichard resigned today. I'm sorry to lose him, but we wish him well, and we will seek a replacement as soon as we can. I discovered today the food safety portion of the extension, like I mentioned earlier. That's a wonderful thing. It mentions all kind of trainings and workshops like you mentioned, and there's a food safety workshop coming up in April. And there's one in May here, I think you mentioned, in food safety in Walhalla. So some of those are statewide and you have to drive a ways, and some are not. But that food safety workshop, phase 1's online, so that's cool. And then the phase 2 is a one-day workshop. But those are things that people can attend. Those are things that we can put on our schedule, our calendar here, our directory. Those are some things we can add to that. I also noticed a voucher training program on the 12th.
Right.
Coming up soon, so
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Next, Walhalla.
Budget office.
Extension.
just wanted to mention that.
Upstairs.
I got a message today in reference to a Clemson podcast that the communications folks are going to put on. It's called Land Matters. And it's gonna be a 15 or 20-minute interview, broadcast over the airways and the podcast and whatever. And they'll have guest speakers and experts talking about land usage. And so that's something I think we might be interested in. We had Dr. Gray and I attended the council meeting last week, and a lady spoke passionately about the homeless problem. And we've all seen it, and it's a lot worse than we realize, most of us. And so that's a matter of concern on down the road, and I think it goes strongly with the food situation. So, and it's a lot of things intertwined with that. So let's keep that in mind for future meetings. So keep writing and tell Adam who you want to talk to out of this directory and contact them and find out some events. Please try to keep writing and talking up agriculture to your neighbors and friends and political allies or whoever. Write letters if you can. Just continue to publish the good things going on in agriculture.
And I'll get passive aggressive at the end of the week if y'all don't respond to me. I mean, it's okay, don't worry about it, just fine, just so, if y'all could by Friday, get that to me.
Any other new business? Seems to be about closing time, or 7:30. Hearing no further discussion, do we have a motion to?
Motion adjourned?
Second? Second. All right, everybody in favor, say aye. Thank you, sir. Thank y'all for coming.